Good morning, everyone. I am back. I am back in business. It's Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch here, Abogada Kate, here with you guys on Tuesday mornings in English to do a 30-minute live show on all the social media platforms where we will talk about all things immigration. I'll give you the updates of the week. I'll answer your questions. I'll give you a tip on how to help. And if you've been following along with me, you know that I have been on the road in El Bus Sin Fronteras, all around the country. We were incredibly ambitious. Oop, my phone is starting to drop. We were incredibly ambitious with this tour. Our first tour on a Bus Sin Fronteras. It was a comedy of errors. At one point, we watched that movie RV with Robin Williams, and it was like too soon. It was too soon. You know how what they say about like RV travel is that it doesn't matter, like old or new, something always breaks, which makes sense because you're like rattling down the road in a house, you know? I mean, imagine if you took your own house that you live in and you put it like on a vibration plate. Think about all the things that would break. Well, that's kind of what it's like in an RV. So we packed ourselves, our dogs, our children into this teeny little bus, drove around the country. Things broke. The AC broke on the second day. We had our dogs. We adopted a kitten. Maybe at some point she'll come and visit. She's adorable. Her name is Humo, which means smoke in Spanish. And we had laughter and we had tears. And we got to do some events. We didn't get to do all of the events that we anticipated. The idea of El Bus Sin Fronteras is to bring resources, legal consultations, information, education, support to immigrant communities around the country, particularly in underserved areas where immigrants live, but they don't have a lot of support from nonprofit organizations or immigration law firms. So we want to go to where the people are. And this was our first sort of big tour. We've done some small events. That was really cool. We did get some of our stuff cut. Like we didn't get to go to Chicago like we planned to do because we ended up having to come home early with the mechanical issues that we had. But we learned a lot. And we will definitely be we got to get a couple things fixed on the bus, and then we'll be getting it back out on the road to start bringing more resources to people, which is a good segue into the news of the week, immigration news of the week. So the first news item is about an appeal that's happening up to the Supreme Court regarding the way that ICE is raiding Los Angeles. So the whole dynamic at play is that Los Angeles is what's considered a sanctuary city, which doesn't have a legal definition, but a sanctuary city essentially is a city which does not cooperate. It has policies against cooperating with ICE. And so sometimes that can look like ICE doesn't have access to the prisons or the jails in that county. And it really, really upsets the Trump administration to not have cooperation from local law enforcement. See Washington, D.C. as an example. And so what they do is they double down on the areas that are considered sanctuaries, and they go and they do what's called roving raids in those places. So ICE likes to tout that they only do directed, targeted operations. So you'll hear Kristi Noem talk about like, no, we're only going directly after people. It's not actually true. But there's a difference between a targeted operation where they have someone's name on a list and they know where that person lives and works and they go after that person and then they arrest everybody around, versus a roving raid where they're just going to places where they know that day laborers gather, like a Home Depot parking lot, for example, or they might even just go places where people speak Spanish. You know, obvious racial profiling, discrimination issues at play in roving raids like this. So ICE was conducting these roving raids in Los Angeles. I think the city of Los Angeles sued as the plaintiff in this case. I'll have to double check that. But in any event, there's a federal lawsuit. The lower federal judge said, ICE, you cannot conduct raids based on people's language. No, you can't do that. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that decision, and then the Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to review it in an emergency appeal. So essentially what the Trump administration is saying is, we would like to get back to roving raids where we use racial or language, at least, profiling to go after communities. And the Supreme Court is weighing that request right now. So please do stay tuned on that. It will have a significant impact on the way that ICE raids are conducted if the Supreme Court decides to allow roving raids based on language. And, you know, as we've seen from the Supreme Court, a lot of surprise things back and forth. So we may very well see the Supreme Court allowing roving raids, and then things will get really crazy. So that's news item number one. Let me give you guys news item number two. Okay, good news is that TPS for Haitians has been extended. So TPS is temporary protected status. We talk about this a lot. It is a way that people who are from a country that has some type of collapse can stay here legally. So we've seen TPS for Liberians when there was an Ebola outbreak, for Haitians after the earthquake, for Hondurans and Nicaraguans after the hurricane, for Venezuelans after the political collapse. The Trump administration despises TPS. They hate it. They don't want to grant protected status to anybody. No surprise, especially people who are people of color. And so they have been systematically canceling TPS since January, just one after the other. But there's been a lot of federal lawsuits, and most of these courts are finding that the Trump administration is being too aggressive or fast acting in its cancellations. And so TPS for Haiti is an example. So TPS for Haitians has been extended another 6 months to February of 2026. So that's great news for Haitians in TPS status. Also for Hondurans, Nepalese, and Nicaraguans, TPS has been extended by court order. That does not mean, of course, that you should just say like, oh, great, I got 6 more months. I don't have to think about this for 6 months. No, it takes a long time to pick and apply for an alternative pathway in immigration, months and months and months and months, if not longer. So now is the time. When you get a bit of a reprieve, use the time wisely. That's my advice. Please consult with an immigration lawyer about your status. You might be able to get legal status through employment. DACA can sometimes get green cards through employment. You might be able to get legal status through family, of course, spouse, parent, child, brother, although the wait time can be long for siblings. There's also humanitarian options, people who can get green cards through having been victims of crime, victims of abuse or mistreatment in the workplace, victims of domestic violence in a relationship with the U.S. citizens. And these humanitarian cases often come with a lot of flexibility and waivers. So, for example, if you've been told that you can't get a green card through family or through employment, you might still be eligible through a humanitarian case because you can waive entries, exits, arrests, convictions. So I really highly recommend that people who are facing some type of temporary status like DACA or TPS consult with an immigration lawyer to see what other type of status you can get. I have to just fix my phone real quick. I'm using one of these like suction cup thingies on my phone on my computer screen, which I thought was really great. But as I am talking to you guys, the whole thing moves. Okay, there we go. Technical difficulties. Pretty soon I'll be back with my like whole setup next week, but this is close. It's really nice to be back at my desk. Okay, so TPS for Haitians has been extended to February. Next item, news item is, as if you've been watching or listening to the news, you know that Trump has invoked federal power to take over Washington, D.C. He is making claims that Washington, D.C. is overrun with crime, with drugs, with homeless population, and he has directed the National Guard and other federal law enforcement agencies like the DEA to literally go in and take over the city of D.C. It's crazy. I mean, the DC leadership is so opposed to this. Like the mayor, chief of police. I actually haven't heard from the chief of police, but the mayor for sure. Because there's DC has a lowering crime rate. Crime is dropping in DC. DC does not have a crime problem, but there's some suspicion that Trump is really trying to distract from the Epstein files debacle. This is, of course, grabbing headlines. Lots of media will be sent out there. Lots of video. All the big outlets are going to be talking about Trump's takeover of Washington. And nobody's really talking about the Epstein files, at least for a few days. So that's what's happening in DC. I think we're going to probably see a lot of like guardsmen posted up in the corners, arresting people. They're going to be driving out the homeless population in the city. Nobody knows what they're going to be doing with these folks, but it's going to be loud and messy, and the whole point is to get all of us talking about it and probably not talking about other things like the Epstein files. A couple more pieces of news for you guys. Go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat, and I'll get to answering your live questions here in a minute. So we have a new announcement from U.S. Citizenship and Immigration. This is in the weeds. This is related to the Child Status Protection Act. What's happening is that USCIS is using only the final action date, not the earlier date for filing. So in immigration, when you have a priority date, there's two charts in the visa bulletin, and sometimes you can pick the lower chart, which allows you to apply a little bit earlier and get you protected. That is going away essentially for CSPA cases. So it's very niche, but some folks who are waiting, here's what I would say. If you know you are about to be, or you are awaiting your priority date for your family-based immigration case, please consult again with a lawyer, even if you consulted 90 days ago, 60 days ago, because policies are changing that could impact your deadlines. That's what I would say about that. Next news item. This is kind of a good thing. The Hispanic Baptist Convention of Texas and affiliated churches have joined a lawsuit that opposes the DHS policy of lifting the safe location protection. So you might remember that in the early part of this presidency, one of the first things that Trump did was he lifted the Safe Places memo. Safe places are domestic violence shelters, schools, hospitals, and churches. So up until that memo, those were places where people knew that raids and enforcement actions weren't going to go down. So people could go to church, kids could go to school, people could go to the hospital, women, and men could go to domestic violence shelters. One of the things that the Trump administration did was lift that safe place memo and to say these places are no longer safe. Well, there were some churches up in the Northeast, in like Maryland area, Presbyterian, I think was one of them. They filed a lawsuit saying you can't just like pull the safe locations memo. What I'm happy to see is that the Baptist Church is joining in this litigation because, Baptist tends to be evangelical. They tend to be a little more conservative politically. So if we start to see things like Baptists joining lawsuits against Trump and DHS, there's a political opinion sea change occurring. Trump's ratings are low. They're in the 30s. People are not down with what's going on with Trump. Everybody is still like the fog is sort of lifting and people are starting to see what's actually going down. And this is one thing that I think I will say just from a discourse position is, there are people who voted for Trump or didn't vote or were apolitical who are now realizing their mistakes and they're talking about it. And what I want to encourage Democrats, progressives, liberals to do is to welcome these people with open arms. I know a lot of us do, but remember, it takes a lot for a person to wake up and realize I was wrong or I was lied to. I believe something that wasn't true. And now I realize the truth. It's happening for, I think, a lot of people, in the Israel-Palestine conflict. A lot of people are starting to realize that the state of Israel is committing genocide, right? And you may not have realized what was going on. And it's okay. It is okay to wake up and talk about it. And so just remember that, guys, when you see someone who's like, oh, I was a Trump supporter and then my wife got deported, don't double down on them. Don't beat them up and be like, well, so if you right, man. I mean, I understand the sentiment, and it's understandable to be angry that someone allowed this to happen, that they placed their vote in that way, and welcome people in when they realize the truth. Okay, last two items of news for you. Greg Casar, a U.S. congressman, he's from Austin, great guy. He's calling for an investigation after ICE arrested people at a construction site in East Austin. This was following a DPS traffic stop. So the Department of Public Safety has been making immigration arrests based on racial profiling. It's been reported since Greg Abbott directed them to start arresting people, immigrants, in January. And Greg Casar is calling for an investigation into those arrests, which I think is really great, because what can be hard is, like, let's say we have, Giddings Police Department, Bastrop Police Department, some ICE, not ICE, some police agency pulls somebody over and they don't make an arrest, but they call ICE. But they didn't have probable cause to detain that person, or they used racial profiling when they pulled that person over. But if they didn't make an arrest, it can be really hard to bring a lawsuit or tie the racial profiling back to the agency that made the stop. Because once ICE detains someone, it's more indirect and it's harder. So I'm really happy to see someone in power like Greg Casar calling for an investigation into DPS actions, because our police agencies, state troopers, of course, should not be using racial profiling, but they are. That's what the reports are saying, is that they are doing that. And then the final point of news is that in Austin, where I am, a lot of restaurants are starting to suffer. We've had some raids. We've had people self-deporting, being afraid to go to work. Some of our, beloved restaurant establishments like Locadoro and Bambino in Austin are reporting that they're struggling to keep their restaurants open. They're struggling to find staff. This is this is the early conversation around industry suffering because of what's happening on the immigration front. We've all been talking about, we know this is coming. Agriculture, of course, we're going to start to see this in crops, meat packing, processing facilities. So we'll see it in other agricultural areas, hospitality, restaurants, hotels, cleaning, landscaping, construction, of course. So all of these industries are going to be the first to fall. And then we'll start to see the other industries. Immigrants, of course, are important in all sectors. Medicine, 1 and 2, home healthcare aides is an immigrant. In doctors, nurses, tech, engineering, innovation, all of that. We're going to start to see all of these areas suffer when the immigrants start self-deporting or, not showing up for work. Okay, I'm looking for there you are. Okay, I'm getting to the comments now. I see comments coming in. Let's get to Q&A. Go ahead and start posting your questions. And let's start. Can a child petition for their parent without the parent having to leave the U.S.? Only if the parent entered the country legally, and there's proof of that, like if you have a visa or other proof of admission, or if, here, I'll give you all the ways. Either the parent entered legally, or there's been cruelty in the relationship, in which case it would be a VAWA petition, or the parent was part of a petition that was filed before 2001, or someone in the immediate family has served in the U.S. military. Those are the 4 ways that we can do. It's called an adjustment of status without the parent having to leave the country. So we should always just consult. We'll look for we always look for that as the primary way to do this when we have someone come in for a consultation. But in general, that's how you do it. Can I reopen my case that my dad started but didn't complete? Both of my parents have passed away. I have a social security number, but not the card. I also have an immigration card that we had to renew every 90 days. Yes, I think that we probably could do something, because the fact that you got the Social Security card indicates to me that a petition was actually filed with USCIS. It used to be this way, by the way, decades ago. When you filed an I-130, even if it didn't come with legal status, you would get a Social Security number as the beneficiary. We have protections in the United States for beneficiaries where the petitioner has died. And so if your dad filed something for you and he passed away, we can probably continue it. It can get a little complicated depending upon who the relatives are and where everybody is and all of that. So I won't get into all of that on this live video. What I will say is just DM me for a free consultation. We're still doing free consultations, at least through the end of summer. We are a virtual law firm, and immigration law is federal. So we can help people all over the globe, all over the 50 United States. If you want a consultation, just DM me and we'll get you scheduled via Zoom. Any changes on the U visa from TikTok? No changes yet. We do have a new director over U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service who was appointed by Trump. So we're watching that closely. But remember, the U visa is it's a law that was passed by Congress. So is the T visa. So is VAWA. So is family-based immigration. So although USCIS without law change can sort of impact the way things get processed, so processing times, maybe how tough they are on cases, all of that, they can mess with people, but they can't just revoke or change the law without an act of Congress. So U visa is relatively protective, and we haven't seen changes. We're still getting approvals daily for our clients with U visas, T visas, and VAWA. So that hasn't changed yet. Instagram, Arto, I don't know how to say your name. If someone overstays her visa for more than 20 years, is there something that she can do? Is ICE coming for her? So someone who is a visa overstay has a legal entry. And so if you were an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, like a spouse, a parent, or a child, you could adjust status. But of course, you have to have that relationship. And presumably you already know that. I think that most people know that. A visa overstay is not, in my knowledge, registered somewhere, because they haven't tracked when people leave. I mean, yeah, sometimes people from Mexico turn in their 6-month permit, the little card. And so they have this like kind of sort of way of tracking, but they don't really, as far as I've ever seen, have a clear sense of who left and when, because people can just drive out. They can drive to Canada. They could drive to Mexico. They could purchase a ticket and fly out. And I don't know that DHS has all of the flight records. So overstays, in my opinion, there's not some big clear database where they know where all the overstays are. They might have all of the suspected overstays, but that's going to have a lot of people who actually already left. So it would be a pretty hefty thing for law enforcement to try and go after that list. So in my opinion, a visa overstay is undocumented just like anybody else's. So you need to consult with a lawyer, understand your eligibility, prepare for if you were to get detained, what's going to happen with your things, what's going to happen with your kids, where are your important documents, would you want to stay and fight your case, etc. Like these are all things you want to think about before the emergency occurs. I will remind you guys that I have a resources website. It's called abogadakate.com. This has our safety planning packet. It's a 20-page packet that has a document about how you can protect yourselves, protect your kids, all the documents you need to collect, what your rights are, all of that stuff. So you could start with a consultation and the safety planning packet. And those are really great first steps. In TikTok, entered legally, overstayed, have an approved I-130 with a 4-year wait for the green card. What are my options? Sounds to me like your petitioner is a permanent resident with a 4-year wait. So I would say, number one, let's look at whether your petitioner can become a U.S. citizen. That would speed up that wait time. If there's like a language barrier, you might want to encourage, let's say it's your husband and he's got limited English. Okay. Let's encourage him to file for citizenship and study English. Get on Duolingo, 15 minutes a night, because for the citizenship test, you don't have to be fluent. You have to understand the form that you've filled out and understand the civics question. You don't have to have some deep philosophical conversation in English. So I think a lot of people who could get over the language part of a citizenship test don't do it because they're afraid. But in the case where it could help your family member, it's worth the risk. Because if you get denied for language, you just keep your green card. Nothing happens. My sister submitted a petition for me more than 20 years ago, and we still haven't received a response. Wow. Let's see. Let me move this a little bit. My mother is a U.S. citizen but is retired. I'd like to know if there's anything else I can do while we wait for the original petition to be processed. Let's consult because I want to know about your mom's case and how she got her citizenship and how old you were and were you included. And do you have an approval of your sister's petition or is it still pending? These are all questions I have, but I will say the wait time for siblings is 25 years or so. So if you waited 20 years, you're getting closer. But let's consult and we'll look through other options for you. Okay. Estase in Instagram. My dad petitioned for me, but the petition got denied because he doesn't appear on my birth certificate. It was so complicated to obtain my dad's health. Is it possible that an NTA will be sent? For sure. One of the things that they'll do when they suspect paternity is that they'll require a DNA test, a blood test. So one of the things you and your dad could do, if he's still around and healthy enough to do this, is you could actually go and get a DNA test, find out which, I'm sorry, my phone is it's slipping. What you can find out, you can Google this. What are the USCIS approved DNA testing companies? And pick one of those, go with your dad, get a test done. Then if they RFE you, you'll already have the test and you can just go ahead and send it. That's what I would do is just get that done. Because when you get an RFE, they're going to give you a 30 or a 90-day deadline and you may not be able to get the DNA test done in time. So that's what I would do. Instagram Paget's. I have a green card. Can they take it away from me? I have a clean criminal record, no arrests or any problems. No, they can't just revoke green cards when you don't have any issues. They can take your green card away if you abandon your status, meaning you leave the country for longer than a year. They can take it if you have a criminal history or if you get arrested, or they can take it if they find fraud in your history. So if you got your green card through fraud, they can go backwards and take it back from you. Those are the ways that green cards can be taken from people. If you have worries about any of that, please consult with a lawyer. Lawyers have an ethical duty of confidentiality with their clients. So anything you tell a lawyer in a consultation will not be shared. Of course, this is for me, but this is all lawyers. You can go into a lawyer's office in a consultation and tell them everything. It's like a doctor. Doctors have HIPAA confidentiality as well. So just tell us. The best thing you can do is go to a lawyer and say, I'm worried about this thing, and we'll help you determine whether it's a real concern or not. The other thing I would say is that permanent residents should be seeking citizenship because they can't take your citizenship away from you, and you can go anywhere you want. You could move out of the country and wait for a new president and then come back. If you get arrested, you won't be deported. You can't be deported. You can't have the status pulled back from you except for very extreme, very, very rare circumstances. So permanent residents who are worried, the best thing you can do is get your citizenship because then you're really protected. These names, you guys are getting me with your names today. Pterodactyl. Is there a fund with your law firm for people who can't afford representation that I could donate to? That's so nice. Yes, I don't take donations at my law firm, but I'm on the board of several organizations. Send me a DM and tell me where you live. Are you wanting to provide legal services to people? If so, then what I would do is pick a legal service organization in your area. I'm in Austin, so there's a few organizations. I'm on the board of an organization called Vecina, which means neighbor in Spanish. And what we do is we partner pro bono lawyers with clients, and then we train and mentor the lawyers through their case. So it helps lawyers who are like insurance attorneys or estate planning attorneys. They don't know anything about immigration, but they care and they want to do something. We teach them and give them clients, and they take these cases pro bono with support. So that's what Vecina does. But there's also direct service providers. Like in Austin, there's American Gateways, and this is an organization that's been I work that was my first job out of law school, was at American Gateways. They are really great. They actually take clients and represent them, and all of these organizations have had their funding slashed. So this is also a time when immigrants really can't find pro bono representation in the way that they used to be able to do. So it's a very generous and needed thing to do right now. Thank you. Do I handle special immigrant juvenile cases? Yes, I do. We do. SIJ is an interesting hybrid. It's for a child who has been abandoned, abused, or neglected by one parent. And it's a petition to get that kiddo a green card. And so, like, let's say a child has a single mom, dad's not in the picture, we can do SIJ. But we have to start at the family court. We have to go into family court and get a finding from the family court judge that it's not in this child's interest to return to their parent or their country. And so it's a hybrid of family court and immigration, which is why a lot of immigration lawyers don't do it. But we do. We have lawyers on our team who do both of those types of petitions. Thank you for giving us hope. Oh, thank you guys. It's been such an uplifting thing to be on social media through these times and to be sharing with you guys and getting messages like this. I can't tell you in my DMs how many people are supportive of the immigrant community. That's the thing that I think people really need to understand is we've got this really loud, bully, awful president with people in his cabinet like Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, these people who might make you think that this is America and that this is the way America feels about immigrants. But I can tell you it's not true. It's not true. We are the majority. There's a reason that Trump has the lowest approval rating that he's ever had before, that he's in the 30s. It's because America is not okay. We're not okay with picking good, hardworking people up off the streets and taking them away from their families. It's just not okay with us. And we recognize the contributions of immigrants to this country. And we are the majority. And we are going to take back this country in the midterm elections. And so don't despair. Keep being involved. I think one of the dangers actually for us is what's the word? Is it desensitization, where it's just all so much. Like even when I see videos of like children in Gaza, or anytime I see an immigration arrest, my initial instinct is to just keep going. Just like, I can't take anymore. I cannot take anymore. But I will literally force myself to watch these things because these people deserve our attention and our outrage and our support. And we can't let the fact that there's so many of these heartbreaking stories and videos on our feeds keep us from watching them and feeling a response to them, because it is the response and the reaction of those of us who care that will keep this flame alive, and it will make the midterms successful for us. So thank you for your message of support. I think this is the final question, and then we'll get to the action tip of the week. I applied for citizenship and I was told I would receive my oath ceremony date, but instead I just received a new interview appointment. I don't understand why. What's going on? It's possible that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. They do make mistakes. To me, this is an indication that something came out in your initial interview that they want to dig into, or in your file, that they are doing a double look at your case. So definitely, if you have a lawyer, let your lawyer know what's going on. If your lawyer blows you off or says like, oh no, we'll just blah, 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 get a second opinion, because this to me means that something's up potentially and that we need to dig in. How did you come to the country? Did you get a green card? Were there any issues with that? let's scour your form. Let's figure it out. Let's do a deep dive and figure out what potentially is going on so that we can help protect you. And then you definitely should have an attorney in that second interview. I think it's cause for attention, if not concern. All right, so back to school. A lot of people in Texas are sending their children back to school tomorrow, August 13th. Isn't that wild? But I know we're all of us parents are like, yeah, back to school. These summers are long, y'all. So anyway, our action tip of the week, of course, this action tip is to help you guys stay involved and connected and supportive in the immigrant community. Look locally for a back to school drive. People have to go out and buy backpacks and clothes and supplies, and it's expensive, and people are scared to go out right now. So just find out locally if there's some back to school drive where you can donate a set of materials to give to people. I'm so happy to be back in my home office with you guys talking about this stuff. So I'll see you on Thursday in Espanol. Thanks for being here with me. Have a great Tuesday, great tomorrow. See you in a couple days. Bye-bye.